This is my first video in a series of videos about writing Ruby scripts for SketchUp. I plan on going over some of the basics of how I set up my Ruby script writing environment and some of the basic variables that I set up from the beginning in all my scripts. So this here is the SketchUp window, which you probably should be familiar with already. This is the Ruby Web Console. Now this does not come with SketchUp. This is an additional plugin developed by Jim Foltz, and I find it highly useful for writing scripts. So I'll show you where to find that. Come here to Google and I type in SketchUp, blog, plugin, anything like that, and that generally brings up Jim's plugins blog. So we'll go there. And here on his blog, he has at the top My Plugins here, and he sells some on smustard.com, and he has a link to some open source projects he's working on. So we'll go to the ones here on his blog. Down towards the end of this list, he has the Web Console. That's to execute multi-line Ruby code snippets. Perfect. So download and install the Web Console. And then in SketchUp, once you have it installed, it comes in the Plugins menu and Web Console, and execute that. And that will bring up this window here, which is great for developing a lot of smaller snippets of code that you just want to test while you're working on in SketchUp. So here, the very first thing generally that I'm doing as I'm writing a code is I initialize the model object. So model equals SketchUp dot active model. Now this model variable points to the SketchUp active model. So click execute and it shows the SketchUp model object. That's perfect. So now that I have a model object, what can I do to that? So let's come back to the internet and switch over to the SketchUp Ruby API. So look for the model class and come in here, and these are all the methods that are available to the model class. The first one we'll look at is here, selection. So model.selection. This retrieves a selection object for the model containing the current selected entities. Okay, so let's do that. Model.selection. Click execute, and that returns a SketchUp selection object. So if I have all of these selected and click execute, it still just returns a selection object. To see what's inside of the selection, you turn it into an array with 2A. Click execute, and now it shows you each object, each entity that's inside of that selection object. So I want to have a variable pointing to the selection object so that I can reuse it throughout my script. So I will do cell equals model.selection. I'll remove the 2A because I want my selection variable to be pointing directly to the model.selection object. I also like to set up an ents variable that points to the model entities. So model.active entities. So the active entities is a collection of all the objects in the current model space, in the current editing space, I guess. So if you are editing a component, active entities returns all of the entities that are inside of the component you're editing. If you're in the outermost model space like we are here, I'm not editing anything, then active entities returns everything in the model. So now the ents variable is going to return an entities object. So click execute and you can see that it returns an entities object. And again, if I want to see what's inside my entities object, I can turn it into an array with 2A. Click execute and it returns all the same edges that are inside of the object, the model entities collection. So erase that. So now I have my three major variables that I set up for almost all of my scripts: the model that points to the active model, selection that points to the selection, and ents that points to the active entities. So these will be common variables that I'll set up probably quickly in the beginning of each of my scripts. So you'll probably, you'll need to know what these are for the rest of my videos because I'll be working with these. Probably I'll just be skipping right over them, expecting that you'll know what they are from this first video. So I hope that's helpful for the rest of the videos. All right, thanks.